Hey, one thing I want to start with, RJ, is there's a lot going on today. The bromance in the White House between Elon and Donald Trump. It seems like it's over, and it's not going well. So I'm just curious, have you been able to kind of win market share or anything as a result of kind of Elon's position at Doge? And I'm just curious how it might play out here.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd just say
anti-Tesla mode.
Yeah, I think in general, it's the thing that's been surprising is just how politicized a lot of things have become. So electric vehicles become politicized. Specific brands within the electric vehicle space are politicized. And so what we've tried to do as a brand, really focused on, is to focus on what we stand for, the products, their attributes, and you know, there's the famous Michael Jordan quote, which is, we have Republicans, he said, Republicans and Democrats both buy Nikes. And it's the same thing with Rivian. So I'll go to Rivian events. I was just in New York yesterday. And it's such a beautiful mix of backgrounds, perspectives, cultures that are drawn to what we're building as a brand.
Right.
And we're about to launch what we call our R2, which is a lower priced vehicle. It starts at $45,000. And that product will even, broaden the aperture even more. And so
I think what Carol's asking is if there's net positive effect for you from this environment on sales and pre-orders.
So
I think
that's what she was asking.
I think that you're benefiting from this environment.
The anti-Tesla movement, have you benefited from it?
I think there are a lot of customers who are looking for a brand that they want to connect with. So we're seeing that for sure.
Yeah, sort of on that, thinking about the politics of this rare earths, I mean, you and the team have been really clear that you've been working to educate the Trump administration when it comes to the complexities around processing rare earths here in the U.S. We did hear from the president earlier today after a call with President Xi Jinping. He said there should no longer be any questions respecting the complexity of rare earths products. Are you still concerned about accessibility to rare earths?
Well, first I'd say I appreciate that the administration recognizes this as an issue. That's important. And I think that we've done a lot of work and spent a lot of time with the administration on this topic. I think this is perhaps one of the biggest topics surrounding the trade tensions with China. It's well documented that a vast majority of the world's processing for these rare earth metals happens in China. So this is something that we're going to continue to be very focused on, continue to have concerns about until we start to see it really move.
What's your backup plan?
Which we have many backup plans.
If you can't get access to these rare earths for some reason over an extended period of time, which are essential in making EVs and batteries, what do you do?
So what we've done, what we've spent time on over the last several months is to build alternative supply chains, but they're not elegant because they're not set up for scale, and a lot of people beyond us are also trying to build these alternative supply chains. So I think the hope is that in the short to medium term we see this open back up. Right. And I think in the long term we're probably going to see both investment into building rare earth capacity outside of China, and then innovation to remove rare earths from products. So if you take in an electric vehicle, the reason this is so important is the motors use permanent magnets, and the permanent magnets have rare earth metals, things like dysprosium, all those things on the periodic table that we forget they're on there. But those rare earth metals are needed in the magnets, but you can create an electromagnet to power the rotor. The rotor's the spinning part of the motor, but then you've got to get power to the rotors. So that you can do it with a brush, you can do it with induction. So it's a more complex motor product, but it does remove the complexity of global trade around rare earths.
But is that a little time away?
Yeah, it's not, you can't flip your design overnight, but I would say I think a lot of the auto industry is going to start finding innovative ways that are perhaps maybe a little more expensive that reduce the reliance on rare earths.
People wonder how nimble you are, though. Like, do you remember when we first met 7 years ago, with respect, your suppliers really wouldn't engage with you because of scale.
Yeah.
So if you have had to pivot a little bit because of policy, particularly for planning for R2, have you been able to, A, get your suppliers to listen to you, and B, affect a change? What's changed?
We've talked about this a lot. I mean, our relationship with suppliers and leverage we have with those suppliers is so much stronger today with R2 and what's to come than what we had, in 2019 or 2020, even 2018. But I'd say the thing that's really helpful for us in R2 is it's not as if this is a surprise. We saw, if you going into summer of last year, we saw some of these tensions already rising between the United States and China, and that was as we were planning for and sourcing R2. So we contemplated and in many ways anticipated a lot of these situations we're now dealing with in terms of tariffs, in terms of trade restrictions happening. So in the medium to long term, we're pretty well covered. In the short to medium term, if things get shut off, that's really challenging. And so that's where I think the rare earth challenge is, that if this happens where it's off, it just creates a lot of pressure on a very thin, non-China supply chain.
I still think there's a lot of interest in Rivian. What I hear is there's also a lot of interest in Orso, your micromobility spin-off. Would you consider kind of de-risking yourselves a little bit by allowing outside investors to write you a check into that venture and get you some capital or de-risk your own balance sheet in that respect?
Yeah, so we spun this micromobility portion of Rivian out, and we actually raised outside capital. So we brought $105 million in at the start of the year.
Which was from Eclipse.
Which was from Eclipse, exactly.
Right.
And so it's now independently financed from Rivian. And it's a really exciting set of products. We're going to show those products in the fall.
But would the venture look at even further outside capital to get going a little bit?
We could, yeah, we could. But we're really happy with where it is. It's exciting to build a new business with the strength of all the Rivian technologies it's starting.
Right.
I saved 30 seconds at the end to wrap up our show. With everything that's going on from the administration, kind of pushback, it feels like, against alternative energy and EVs, do you think it's a real setback, or things will keep moving? And forgive me, it's just about 30 seconds.
30 seconds. All right.
Go.
Look, I think there's a lot of noise in the short term, but the end state is still really clear. The world's going to electrify. We're going to move towards sustainable, carbon-neutral transportation, and the countries and the businesses that focus on the future state are the ones that are going to be participants in the long term. And so, we talk about this often with the administration, which is the importance of U.S. companies having technical leadership, production capacity around these areas, and make sure we're there.